whenever some of this stuff start happening, Grace is gonna start flying, right? And
No matter what.
but the question is, when would you buy?
What's
The
the thing
big
that will
move
make
is
me
like
buy?
2028.
Yeah. I think
So
the thing
then,
that would make
is it?
me buy is when I see them. That to me is a sign that I'm like, all right, yo,
But then
something's coming.
but it could still be 3 years from now, though. Like what?
Could. All right, so then what other things are you also looking for? Because for me, that shows proper intention.
This would be nice to look back. Hi to me from the future, 2030. I hope I decided to buy some Grace shares when the time was right. If not, damn you, you fool. This is why we're broke.
This is why we're broke, bro. Come on, get it
This is why
together.
we're broke. Hi, guys, and welcome to Tickers from the Limitless Podcast. This is the series where we review listed companies on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. I'm Matthew.
I'm Thaon.
And today we'll be talking about GraceKennedy, ticker as GK. But before we get into the video, we would love if you guys would subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, or you can follow us on your podcasting platform of choice. It really means a lot to us. We are trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of this year. And without further ado, let's get into it.
Let's go.
Yeah. So
you
let
know
me share.
What's funny about GK? GK was the first recommended stock to me. Like when I went to my broker and I was signing up and made my invest, the first company they said to buy was GK.
Remember what price it was then?
Maybe 50s or 60s at the time.
50s or 60s. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
When was this? Was like 2019?
2019. Yeah.
I should actually.
Was it that high? I don't know.
So it wasn't the first recommended stock, but I should big them up because they actually helped. They gave me a scholarship. I don't know if I told you that in final year they had like a final year scholarship.
Yeah,
and
I remember you told me.
I got a scholarship from them, so thank you. Interestingly, like it makes sense that how I think you got the scholarship money was you had to set up a First Global bank account. And I guess we'll get into it when we get into episode, but First Global Bank is GraceKennedy's, commercial bank. So I guess it made sense. They're like, hey, let's get we're going to donate money, but like, why don't we get people to set up a bank account with them? So, and I still use the First Global account to this day. So I guess, they got a customer out of me because of that.
I remember you walking around the aisles of Hilo. I don't remember why, but I know it had something to do with the scholarship. Yes, once.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like you had to do a certain amount of, it wasn't free money. You had to have the grades, and you also had to, I'm trying to remember how many hours. I think it was like 100 hours
of service.
Of volunteer hours. And essentially like you'd be at the Hilo supermarket, which they own, and then it was like people would come in and then you would like ask them, oh, would you like to, I think they were donating towards some sorts of fund, or like you donate, like say you bought the corned beef or something, you drop off the corned beef or rice or those stuff, and then it would be donated to students who are on hall or live at UE or whatever, who I guess were having a hard time like paying for, if you're paying school fee and you also have to be buying up food, and food is expensive, so it was like a fun for that. So yeah, that's good that they did that.
Yeah, no, that's
big
good.
Them up. Yeah, and I have made money from the stock in the past, so
same. And it was at the worst possible time. It was during COVID.
Yeah. Facts. So
I think we bought around the same time, and we didn't even know that we bought until we said it one of the days that, I'm in GK, and you're like, oh, I'm also in GK too, and we're like, oh, wow. But I think you bought a bit earlier than I did. I think your price was late 50s. My price was $61.61. Can't forget it. and
Mm.
sold it at $105. Yeah, good stock,
Mm. Okay.
good stock, good stock.
Well,
Yeah.
let's get into the video. Let me pull up my presentation.
Guys, if you love this kind of style of videos, please drop a like. We would appreciate it. This is Tickers.
Yeah, you see my screen?
Yeah, bro, let's go.
Okay, so GraceKennedy, one of the big dogs or blue chips on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. They've been around for probably almost like I'm sure it's over 50 years, maybe even close to like 100 years. I don't know. I'd have to check. But they've been around a long time. So, we have our usual tickers format. How does the company make money? What's going on around the company? What are some of their plans? What's the ownership like? How's the stock trading? So in terms of money, GraceKennedy essentially they have two arms for now. So you're buying one stock for now, GraceKennedy, and then it's split up into the financial arm, which is GK Finance, and then they have like a food, a manufacturing and distribution arm, which is GK Foods, right? So on the financial side, they're also, I guess, pretty well diversified. They're into banking, insurance, money services, which is like remittances, and they also have like some miscellaneous stuff. So on the banking side, they have commercial banking. I mentioned before First Global Bank, that's their commercial bank. They are a pretty small player in the, I'd say, overall Jamaican banking space. What I saw in terms of like how they compare, I guess, to the other banks in 2019, there was this article that said that they were about 3.5% of the commercial banking space then. So like in banking in Jamaica, the big dogs is really NCB and Scotia. And then all of the others, I think NCB and Scotia is like probably 60 or 70% of the banking space. So everyone else is kind of like, a much smaller bank. I don't know what First Global is since then. And the article was actually saying that they were the second smallest bank in 2019. So they're not like a very big bank, but I guess they have their niche. I don't think one of the things that is kind of nice, I guess, about them, and I don't know how many other banks in Jamaica do this, but they're actually open on weekends.
Yeah, and they open late too, though.
And they open later than most banks. Like I think in weekdays it's maybe like 6 o'clock or something like that, which I guess most banks. So that part is kind of nice because if you're someone who works and in Jamaica, like going to the bank takes way longer than it should. A lot of times you're in there for hours. It's kind of ridiculous. Like I've been in the bank. I went to, what was it? Maybe a few months ago, I was setting up a Scotiabank account, and I was in the bank for like probably 3 hours, 4 hours, something wild like that.
That's crazy.
There was a point where, oh, you didn't have to wait that long?
No, when I was getting my credit card from Scotia.
No, but you already had an account with them.
Yeah, but I don't see that being so much different. Like,
well, to them it was. I remember it was just packed, man. Like,
and can't you set it up online?
No, well, I guess at the time I don't think you could. I had called them and I was like, "Okay, can you set up like if I'm not an account holder, can I just go in?" And they had said no, and I was like, "Damn, I have to go in." So maybe now that's changed, but at the time I guess I was unlucky. But yeah, First Global isn't really like a big play in the space right now, but I guess they'll try to get their market share. They can try to offer, and it makes sense, I guess, because if like I'm someone who is trying to get into a space that's already dominated by a lot of people, I'd want to try to do things differently than they do it, because you have to kind of
stand out.
Yeah, you have to stand out. So do things that those people aren't doing. So you have to try to be creative. So I guess maybe that's why they've did the different hours and stuff.
Yeah, them opening on Saturday should be clutch for a lot of people that
that
just,
work.
those 9 to 5ers and opening later. Based on their location, it's in the Ligani area. That do they have more than one branch, or is it just that?
Yeah,
branch?
they have more than one. I think they have a New Kingston one too, and I'm sure there's more than one.
But that's the branch I'm really familiar with. So it's easier for people to just walk there during like, after hours or going home or even on the weekend,
Right. And
right?
the cool part is the supermarket, because you made that branch you're talking about, the First Global Ligani, Hilo is right there.
Yeah, right next to it.
And Grace owns Hilo, which we're going to get into. So it's like you can just, yeah.
One-stop shop.
And I guess you can guess which card machine or which bank do you think Hilo uses?
Yeah.
I would likely guess it'd be First Global.
First Global.
It'd actually be sad if they were to let that out to like NCB or Scotia or one of them.
Truly.
But yeah, that's the commercial banking side. Not really a big player for Grace right now. Maybe we'll talk about maybe what stuff they could do. Then they kind of have like the investment side or investment banking side. So they have GK Capital Management. So they actually offer like brokerage services. So if you want, for example, to invest on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, they are a stock brokerage. They have different investment products like mutual funds. You could set up an account to then buy stocks, Jamaican stocks, and I think even US stocks yourself. So they have
Isn't
that.
it like $500,000 to set up an account though? I think
minimum. But I think technically if they were, say they're the lead broker on an IPO, then if you were to apply with them, wouldn't they? I think they'd have to legally give you an account without that amount.
Noted. Well, let's try it and see. I wouldn't mind testing out. But I know I think their fees are also high too, though. Their trading fees, like per trade, is it like 1% or so on or more? I can't recall.
Okay,
I'll figure it out. But you can continue.
But yeah, you see, like I'm even showing on their website, they help with things like mergers, acquisitions. So if you're a business and you need some help with different financing, you're looking to buy a competitor, stuff like that. Essentially, GraceKennedy has an arm of them that they say, hey, we can help you with those kind of business needs and stuff like that. And if you need a bank loan, we have a bank that we own. So I'm sure that there's like synergies there.
Yeah.
And then they even have GK Investments. And if you look at it, GK Investments has a lot of investments on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. So I pulled this up. If you look at it,
they are in a lot of stocks.
So they are the second largest shareholder in Indus Pharma. They are the fifth largest shareholder in Jamaica Fiberglass Producers, or JFP. Second largest shareholder in Regency Petroleum, RPL. And they're the second largest shareholder in Spurtree. And they brought all of these companies public. So it kind of makes sense too.
Yeah.
So JFP, RPL, Spurtree, Indus. We did an episode on RPL. We haven't done an episode on Spurtree, JFP, or Indus. So you guys can let us know if you'd like us to do an episode on that. But if you can see here that the total value of those four, and these are just the ones that they're top 10 in. They likely have other stakes. It's just that it's not, you need like a top 100 list to show it.
Yeah.
But at that, that's 1.2 billion Jamaican worth of money that they have in these companies. They're large. And I like that, like I've seen where some brokers, they list the company.
Call
No, I'm not calling. But they list the company, but then they're not, putting, like, if you look at GK, they actually, you can say RPL here, they sold some, but a lot of these companies, they've been buying consistently since the company listed. Look at that Spurtree, they increased their stake by 31%. RPL, they're buying. JFP, they're buying.
They're selling RPL.
Maybe they had something they had to cover, but they've been buying for a long time though.
Well,
look at this. So you see, I like that. Like it's not that they just list the company and cash out, and then just go and, like, they actually are with you. I like to say, it's one of the, I guess, principles that we say, like, I think it's good to look at companies that management owns shares in the company, and they even buy shares actively on the market, because, like, if they think that
is believing,
if they think that there's value in the company, and they're telling you, yeah, the shares are undervalued, but they don't own any shares, they don't buy any shares, they just sell, like, like
yeah, it doesn't look good. It doesn't bode well for, at least us as investors. because you
Mm-hmm.
kind of want to know that we're
That
in
they're
the
in the
same
same
boat
boat as
together.
you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so
Mm-hmm.
whatever happens in the company, you have, as the broker, have a vested interest in it because you're also a shareholder. So
And a
you're
significant shareholder.
exactly, you have millions of JMD in this company, so you might as well, you want the best for it, just like us as investors. So I do
Mm-hmm.
like companies that have skin in the game.
Yep. And yeah,
Yeah.
so that's their, I guess, banking side. GraceKennedy is also very big in insurance. They have a lot of different arms of insurance. So insurance is generally split up. It's general insurance and then life insurance. So, well, health insurance is technically included under general. So they're in health insurance through a company called Canopy. So they're not very big yet, I think, in the life insurance space, but they are essentially Grace and Moson, which we spoke about. Can look at our separate episode. They essentially set up a joint venture. I think they own 50-50, and they say, hey, let's form a life insurance company called Canopy. I saw some statistics that said that in 2022, they were about 3% of the Jamaica life insurance market. So they're not really that big a player. The big one is really like the Guardian, the Sagicor and such. But they are, trying to, I guess, steal some market share and stuff. I'd love to find some, I guess, more up-to-date statistics, but they are in life insurance through Canopy.
Mm-hmm.
Or,
You
sorry,
know who is
they
in
are
charge
in
of that too?
health insurance through Canopy. Hold on.
You know who's directly in charge of a lot of those stuff, like the insurance segment of GK? We had him on the podcast.
Oh, Stephen?
Stephen Whittingham, yeah. Guys, if you want to hear that episode, the deputy CEO of GK Finance.
Mm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we interviewed Mr. Stephen Whittingham. It was a really cool episode, but he's directly responsible for a lot of that segment, especially the
Mm-hmm.
insurance segment. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just realized that Canopy is both health and life insurance. So, and then on the general insurance, they
I did
have
not know that.
GK. Yeah, they have GK General Insurance. And when I saw some statistics saying that they were one of the top 3 general insurance companies in Jamaica.
I use them.
So, oh, you use that? Okay, nice.
Yeah.
So I see. So they have
They were
general
cheap.
insurance, and then they also have another listed company that they bought, and they actually helped. Well, I guess they've turned around, and they're in the process of turning it around. Key Insurance,
Mm-hmm.
Key Insurance is really big in like car insurance or motor insurance. I know that they're really big with, I think, a lot of taxi men and stuff like that. So GK,
Mm-hmm.
I remember
They
that
have
company was
other
like
smaller.
struggling.
Yeah, they have other smaller insurance packages and so on, like travel insurance and all of those other stuff. But yeah. We made a joke about key insurance on the podcast because we asked Steven which company he likes, and the one he said was Key. And yeah, for those who didn't get it then, I guess you get it now. But yeah.
And then they're in life insurance. So GraceKennedy directly GK Life Insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in a lot of different. Remember, I think this is their website. They're in a lot of different. They're actually in multiple countries with this one, but yeah, they have life insurance. You see credit protection for mortgages, for credit cards, small business credit cards, such personal lines of credit, personal loans, and offer insurance for things like that. So they're in life insurance directly through GK, but then they're also in life insurance through the partially owned subsidiary company Canopy too. Remember I mentioned that they and Musson team together to make Canopy.
Yeah.
So they're really big in insurance, and then they also even own an insurance brokerage company, Allied Insurance Brokers. So they, they're big in insurance. They have all the different arms of insurance. They essentially touch on. I'm showing Allied's website here. Allied helps with helps the broker find general insurance, and my understanding of like an insurance broker is that you go to the insurance broker, and an insurance broker helps you to essentially find an insurance package that works for you. Like they'll work with other insurance companies. Have you ever gone to one before?
I haven't, but that's my understanding of that segment of the market.
Yeah. So I'm wondering,
there's something I feel. There's something I feel like I remember GK acquiring an insurance company. I think it was Scotia's insurance company in the Eastern Caribbean.
Yeah, I think that was
Uh,
under the life insurance.
yeah. So when you said they're in different islands, I remember the Scotia Insurance Eastern Caribbean Limited. I think that's the
Mm-hmm.
name of it. They operate in all of those islands over that side, and even like Turks and
Mm-hmm.
Cayman. I remember they're
Mm-hmm.
and Barbados, I believe. So yeah, some of
Mm-hmm.
those countries.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another part, and that's also what I know. What GK has been doing, they acquire companies. They've been doing it, and they continue to do it. They
Mm-hmm.
really and truly they're a conglomerate, so they have a lot of companies under the GK umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I
Yeah.
guess that was their most recent insurance acquisition. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then, so we mentioned GK on the banking, GK insurance. They also have money services, and I'm sure most people have heard of it. Western Union. They are the
Mm-hmm.
exclusive agent of Western Union in multiple countries across the Caribbean. So they operate in Trinidad, Guyana, Antigua, Anguilla, Montserrat, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, British Virgin Islands. And they're the largest. What I've seen is that they're the largest player in the space. The only thing is that I couldn't really find more recent statistics, but
Mm-hmm.
what I saw was that I think this was from the BOJ. They were saying that up to October 2008, they're about half of what is it? Half of the entire local remittance market. They control about 50% of the remittance market in Jamaica, and so they're a uh, pretty big player in that space. So whenever someone wants to remittances, whenever someone abroad wants to send money, a lot of times instead of doing it directly through like a bank, they'll do it through I guess an intermediate agent like a Western Union. And you can go to the Western Union. Western Union has a lot of different branches and stuff like that. Western
Yeah.
Union even actually has a branch, that same Ligani Plaza we're mentioning. Western Union actually has a branch there. And so you can
Oh.
go there and then pick up your money from your family and your friends. Because if you met it like with Jamaica, we have a lot of, and I guess there's a lot of like a part of the Caribbean culture. You have a lot of people that essentially, a lot of your family and stuff will migrate, and maybe not all your family migrates. It could be, or like a relative, and then the relative works in the US and then sends down money to the family to help pay for expenses and other stuff, or help offset part of that. So a big part of that, the remittance industry in the Caribbean and Jamaica is, a pretty big industry. So I think I have some figures on it that we can get into later. But yeah, that's kind of GraceKennedy. Western Union is a big player. I see that they have this app that they're working. Well, it's in play now, called GK1. I haven't used it yet, but I know that what they're trying to do is essentially put a bunch of the different services that GraceKennedy offers into one place. So hence
Mm-hmm.
GK1. So you can do first global stuff. So your banking stuff, Western Union stuff, high-low stuff, the supermarket that they own, insurance products, Bill Express to pay bills. So it's all kind of different stuff all in one app, which I think kind of makes sense. I know,
Yeah.
for example, have you ever heard of I think it's WeChat?
In China.
Is it? Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
WeChat, right? That's
Yeah.
like I mean that's even crazier than this, but like I know,
Yeah.
for
Much
example,
crazier.
in
Much,
WeChat,
much
it's
crazier.
like everything. Like people, you literally can do almost all the stuff you'd want to do on
You could
one
send
app.
money. All you need, you don't need your
Yeah,
wallet.
like I
You
think
go
even like
out, you
your
just use your
messaging is on
phone.
it. Like
Messaging, your
your messaging is the
medicals. If you
social,
go to your
all your
doctor's
stuff is on.
office, you pay for it. Everything is all your blood tests get sent to your phone and everything. It's insane
Mm-hmm.
actually. When my friends who studied in China tell me about
Mm.
all of the things that they experience and so on, it's crazy to hear about WeChat, like a powerful app like that just controlling your
Mm-hmm.
entire life.
Yeah, so maybe Grace is trying to do some. I mean, I don't think they can do it to that degree, but they're
Yeah.
trying to do some of that. So they're essentially offering all of those different, I mentioned the finance, the foods. They're doing
Mm-hmm.
essentially that through that app. So I think that's pretty cool. I should probably try download it and try it out. And something else that I saw, they actually own a company they own, well, 50, I think it's they own 55% of this company called Greenfield Media Productions.
Oh.
They are the company that actually has the exclusive rights for Champs until 2030. They got it in 2015. Because I always used to say, if you watch Champs, Grace is like a big sponsor of that.
Huge. Yeah, that's
and so
very
it kind of
true.
makes sense. So like their company that they own a good stake in, Greenfield, they're the majority shareholder. They're like, hey, why don't we run ads for our company?
Yeah, it makes sense.
And we sponsor Champs and whatnot. I would, give back and all that stuff. But yeah, so they're also in that. I mean, that's not a big part of their business, but yeah, I saw it, so I just wanted to mention it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's really some of the stuff that stood out from the finance side, and then they have their food side. Food side is once again a lot of different stuff. So for example, they own a company called Consumer Brands. So a lot of people may not actually know Consumer Brands like directly, but you probably know a lot of their products. So I'm showing it on screen now. For example, apparently Bounty, Tide, Crest, Always, Dawn, Mr. Clean, Febreze. They are apparently all of those different products that's under Consumer Brands, which Grace owns. So they have, a lot of different products that, people may not, I see the categories on the website here: home care, fabric care, family care, they have a lot of different products.
Wow, okay.
So that is Grace. So the thing is, like you meant, like, even though they have Hilo, which they own, that's their supermarket, they have products essentially that Downy, they essentially sell to other supermarkets. So even if you're not buying at Hilo, you're actually buying from essentially Grace.
Yeah.
Because I think Charmin, Bounty, aren't those even sold at stuff
used
like
any of those, but fair.
Yeah.
They are a bit
Not even they want to price,
yeah, they're one of the pricier products, but I mean, there's a market for them.
Yeah. Or I say Miss Dash.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah, I use Miss Dash for sure. That garlic and herb season. Yeah. I know Marco Polo products.
So yeah, so that's GraceKennedy.
So they distribute a lot of those products. Interesting.
Yeah. Consumer brands. And then also Unibev. So
Unibev, yeah.
Unibev used to manufacture. Well, I don't say used to. So before GK bought Unibev I think used to manufacture Catherine's Peak and 876. And then GK had bought a stake in Catherine's Peak. I think it was like a 35% or so stake, and then decided to up their stake eventually. I think it's 70% or so now. And then they also bought 876 Water. And then so it's almost like they're like, hey, we're a customer of Unibev, essentially, because if they own Catherine's Peak, they own 876, whatever. That means they're buying those products from Unibev and then selling them. But then they're like, wait, why don't we just buy Unibev? Like, why don't we own the company that we're, paying out money to? And yeah, that's essentially what they did. I'm trying to remember, I think they bought it. They signed the agreement August 2023. Yeah. And then 2 years before that, they had bought the 876 Spring Water brand. And so Unibev actually has this factory. I have it on screen. I think it's in Portland. And they manufacture a lot of different products. Something that they apparently are looking into with the 876 brand, they're looking to push into flavored water. So I was thinking that maybe in a way that could be kind of competing with like a cran water type of product. But what they're saying so far is that they're looking into OTET apple and possibly June plum flavored water. I've never tried something like that, but I'd probably be willing to try it still.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's Unibev, which Grace owns. Let me show their website so you can see. They say Jamaica manufacturing company specialized in fully integrated beverage solutions. They're showing a picture of the factory here. Looks like a pretty fancy factory, yo.
Yeah.
State of the art.
Sure, let's go with that. I really know what inside a water factory looks like, but that seems pretty cool.
Yeah. So that's Unibev, which they bought. Then I mentioned Catherine's Peak before. So up to December 2023, they own 70%, and they had doubled their stake because they had actually owned 35% before. So it's just 35% to 70%. So they bought a stake in the company and were like, hey, we like how you're doing. Let's buy more.
Yeah.
I don't know if, I mean, maybe eventually they even buy the rest of it,
Mm-hmm. I'm curious
And,
about that figure that you have now that you're about to touch on. The second
oh,
largest water
yeah,
brand.
so I saw, where was this? This was in an article that I think it was with Cinco was talking about it, and he was saying that this was 2017. William Mafood, big him up, the chairman of Wisynco. We actually had him on an episode. I'll try to link it. He had said that water was the dominant product in both the purified and spring water categories. He was saying it was around 60% of the market. And then he said, I think that when you take into account the sales of Catherine's Peak and to a lesser extent Lifespan, so essentially he's saying, we say what water is the top one, then after the Catherine's Peak and then Lifespan, he's saying that there are really no other bottled waters that have any market share. But this was 2017. So I thought essentially I read this as he was saying that Catherine's Peak was the second largest. I don't know what percentage of the market that is. But yeah, that's Catherine's Peak. I don't know how much it's changed now. I still know that like water, Wisynco's water is still the dominant one. But yeah, Catherine's Peak is there. I don't know. Do you really have like a preference for water? Like which water brand you drink? I don't know.
Yeah. Water. Wisynco? Yeah.
Oh, you're showing.
I feel like
Can you...
Catherine's Peak just does. You can taste the difference. Like true water drinkers taste the difference. I'm just saying, right? And not everyone is a true water drinker, right? Because true water drinkers drink water at room temperature. But that's a discussion for another time, of course. But yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Catherine's Peak, but I'm also not one of those guys that thinks, they taste like something tastes so wrong, like I would never drink. Nah, it's minute for me, but it's enough for me to know that I do prefer water over like a Catherine's Peak. iCool is also not bad as well, surprisingly.
That's cool.
Yeah, 876 is also not bad. I just don't really buy them, but it's good. It's funny to know. Maybe about a few years ago, I would never understand why GK would own Catherine's Peak. And then I remember when they were buying 876 water, and I was just like, why would they do that? Because, isn't that what we call like, it's not really cannibalization, but you also buying your competitor when you think about it. So they serve different purposes.
Well, your competitor is no longer a competitor, it's still you. So
exactly,
if there's someone who is like, I don't like Catherine's Peak, I feel for 876. And someone's like, yo, I don't like 876, I feel for Catherine's Peak. Either way, is GK making money, so.
Exactly. And I remember Catherine's Peak. So when we had William Mafood on the podcast, he said at the time Catherine's Peak was seen as like a luxury water, and at the time people weren't really drinking bottled water, but Catherine's Peak was the number one water out there in terms of brand or bottled water. Oh. So, water was more of budget friendly. Catherine's Peak was more in like restaurants and so on, and you could get like a water any and anywhere. So it's just crazy to see the dynamic shift throughout the years. But I could see 876 being like the budget version of a Catherine's Peak. So maybe that's the different market, like hitting different market segments and so on. So yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know if it's second largest. I don't know if Catherine's Peak is still the second largest. But
like you think 876 has passed them out?
No, I definitely don't think 876 has passed them out. But I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm just curious because even iCool, you'd be surprised to see the iCool sales and the amount of people I know that drink iCool and prefer iCool, especially the big iCool bottles and so on. So yeah,
okay.
I don't know.
Yeah. So more on the GK food side, I mentioned Catherine's Peak. They also have a company that they own called Dairy Industries. So let me pull this up. So Dairy Industries is actually who apparently does the Tasty Cheese.
Yeah.
I did not know that. Tasty Cheese, Crest, and Cheddar. And even, I say, Anchor. And even yogurt too. It's really great yogurt. Good to grow yogurt. Yes, I'm showing their products.
Cheese, but wow.
Yeah, no, I didn't know. Tasty Cheese, Anchor. So they actually own that Yeah, that company.
That's actually, yeah, wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge.
So that's dairy industries. I
That
mean,
was
I
my
think
favorite yogurt growing up.
which one?
This is really great. Or it's really great. I
Oh,
don't remember. Really,
oh, this
yeah.
one here is really
This
great.
is really
Okay,
great
nice.
yogurt, yeah.
But yeah,
Wow.
so essentially
Anchor too.
there's a lot of, I guess, brands that, because it's not, because you meant like Grace sometimes what they do is they'll have a product that isn't their, it doesn't have their name on it, and then they'll have another product that has their name on it. It's the same type of product though. I wonder if I can maybe show it
And Separate does
on
the exact same thing.
screen. As in like a
Remember, like
separate branded.
Surge Island versus, oh well, I guess Separate branded versus Miracle.
I'm trying to remember an example. I've seen it before where it's like, I think, or even something like Hilo. If you ever go to Hilo, do you know that there's like a Hilo? I think there's like a Hilo tuna, and then there's like another tuna. I don't know if there's a. I want to show it before I say the wrong thing.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what you're talking about. Oh, you mean having Grace's actual logo on the product?
Yeah, because it's like a Grace. This is Grace, say corned beef, but then there's almost like Hilo corned beef separately. But Grace owns
Still owned by
Hilo.
Grace.
I
Yeah.
think that's the example I'm thinking of, where there's a Grace. Let me see. I don't know if Mail Pack Grocer has it. And I guess I found that interesting.
Oh yeah, I forget that Grace owns that Scotch bonnet pepper that everybody uses. That slender bottle with the red top. Yeah. Do they own that? Hold on. I think so.
Let me see. Cause see, okay. Look here.
Yeah, they do.
Their website is not working.
Their new pepper sauces are nice though, like the sweet and spicy one and the green.
See here? There's Hilo corned beef. And then there's Grace corned beef. So that's what I'm saying. Like, well, I don't know what size this is. I wonder which one is
the
more.
Fact that you know that is hilarious, actually.
Like, see, look at this Hilo. The Hilo corned beef. This is from Hilo's website. This is saying this is $192. So let's call it $2 bills.
340 grams, yeah.
And then there's 340 grams here. This is saying 556 for the same. I don't know if this is right. This is saying 340 grams, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. I found that interesting. Like I was at the supermarket and I was just like, wait, but this is Grace and this is Hilo. And then I'm in the Grace owned supermarket, which is Hilo. And then I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. I found that interesting. And I was just showing some of their, I guess, some of the more popular products. I know that they're really big into like a lot of different canned foods. So like the canned beans, black beans, say tuna, the Grace tuna, and then there's I think a Hilo tuna, Grace mackerel, Grace ham. So around Christmas time, Grace Aki, and if you mention that too, there's Grace Aki, and then they own a stake in Spurtree, and then Spurtree sells Aki too. So if there's someone who is like, yo, I don't like the Grace Aki, I like the Spurtree Aki. There's someone who's like, yo, I don't like the Spurtree Aki, I like the Grace Aki. Either way, Grace in a way can be, I guess, benefiting from that.
It's the same with their pepper sauce. Grace has their own pepper sauce, but Spurtree also does their own pepper sauce too. So they'll just buy out their competitors.
Yeah,
it's kind of cool.
Yeah, but yeah, they have a lot of, and then the same thing, seasoning. Spurtree does a lot of seasoning. Grace does a lot of seasoning. So yeah, but they really have a lot of products. I mean, I think the interesting part here is that look into what they own, because sometimes it's not just, the company's name is on the product. That means it's theirs. Like you can have a different name and that company is still benefiting from it, or it's that company's product, but maybe they bought it from someone else and then they just didn't decide to change the name, because there's people who kind of, and it makes sense because like if there's people who say you've been buying, I don't know, Spurtree spices for a long time. If the Spurtree spices then rebranded to Grace spices, there might be some people who are like, oh, yo, I can't get the Spurtree spices anymore, instead of you having to do a whole remarketing campaign to say,
Like
oh,
rebranding.
respiratory spices, it's now Grace Brew spices, you know, like stuff like that. A lot of times it just doesn't really make sense because like you spend a lot of money to change the perception and it may not even really do it. Like it's better you just keep the brand.
Exactly. It
You
might
know?
be risky to do that, and
Yeah.
not necessary because people associate a certain brand with a certain feeling and a certain level of
Mm-hmm.
value. So you will buy
Mm-hmm.
a particular
You know the
Vienna
funny part
sausage.
too? If you change the name, people probably all say, yo, it tastes different. Even though it's the same thing, I feel like there'll be people who are like, yo, it tastes different. It's not my spiritual, it's not my this. Just offer like that, yo. I'm sure
Yeah.
there's like a name for that effect. But yeah,
Yeah.
essentially, if it's not obvious, GraceKennedy is a big company. They have a lot of different arms. A lot of times, a product that they or company that they own, you could be a customer for them and not realize it's a Grace owned company. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was just trying to look into the Grace Finance, the Grace Foods, right? So, in terms of what's going around Grace, obviously it's a large company. So there are gonna be a lot of different things that can affect it. You know, it's I mean, a big part of why they are in these different arms is that hey, if there's some issue affecting one side of the business, say it's the food side, maybe it's not affecting the finance side. So then if the food side isn't doing so good, the finance side can kind of make up for it. And you flip it, something happening to the finance side, the food side can kind of make up. So that's I guess the benefit of diversification.
Mm-hmm.
So supply chain issues are going to affect the food side because if they say Grace, you know, yeah, they'll use, I guess, some amount of Jamaican made inputs to make whatever foods and stuff, but a lot of this stuff they have to import. You know, Jamaica may not always have enough that they need. So if they have to import it, you can either ship it or fly it in. If you know that anyone who ships any items, like you have to pay these shipping companies like the Mail Packs, the My Cars Express, whatnot. You have to pay them per pound. So, and it's a lot more expensive to ship something on a plane usually versus shipping it on a ship, especially if it's something very heavy. So if you're shipping lots and lots of foods and boxes and barrels and whatever, it makes sense that you're gonna have to ship it on a ship. And so if a lot of those shipping routes are affected, recently I know that there were some strikes going on in the East Coast, like on certain ports where the workers were saying, yo, they're not getting paid enough money. And then it's like they shut down the ports for a long time. They were able to find some sort of, I guess, middle ground, but then I think that's only supposed to be for a while. They're supposed to still go back to negotiations early 2025. So then if they don't, work that out, that could be more strikes. So say there's an item Grace wants to import in from the US or another country, and then they're like, hey, it goes through that port on the US, but then now that port is locked. You can't get the item, or it's going to take a lot longer to get the item. They can't manufacture what they need. So that's if Grace were to say, hey, this quarter wasn't so good because we had the supply chain issues, I wouldn't really be surprised if something like that were to happen. That's just part of the business. And they were also mentioned before there's like a drought going on because of like climate change and stuff. There's droughts going on all across the world. Panama Canal needs a lot of water to function. So if it doesn't have the water, it can't really function so well. You can't get as many ships. It's a major shipping route to get items into Jamaica. So if Grace needs stuff to manufacture and they need it to be shipped through the Panama Canal, not less ships going through it, they may get delays there. So that's affecting. You see how that I was saying that's going to affect the food side, but then it shouldn't really affect the finance side. Then the sugary drinks tax. Jamaica has been talking about a sugary drinks tax. One of the drinks I know that they sell. I don't know if you've ever tried it. You probably tried it before. The tropical rhythms.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's kind of.
Tropical
I think
rhythms
it's
is
like more
good.
one of the pricier. I think it's probably one of the pricier juices and stuff like that. Because like a glass
Mm-hmm.
bottle, I think they still sell it in. But I'm sure that I mean, I guess we could check, but I'm sure that tropical rhythms probably has a lot of sugar in it. So then, if the sugar drinks tax were to come into play, essentially it could make tropical rhythms possibly 15% more expensive, 20% more expensive. So there may be people who used to buy that are like, hey, I don't want to buy this anymore. I will buy another drink which is more affordable that has less sugar. So if that were to go into play in Jamaica, that could affect them. I know that Jamaica is facing a lot of different hurricanes, tropical storms. There was a I guess one of the bigger ones that hit us would be Hurricane Beryl, and then naturally, GK is going to be affected. You see, they're going to be affected on both the food side and the finance side, because the finance side is the insurance. And so if they offer some general insurance products that cover, say, home insurance or car insurance, and then say as a part of your car insurance, it covered, damage to a branch or something like that. When those hurricanes, if were to damage homes or whatever, that's then could possibly result in GK having more claims, and they have to pay out the claims, make less money from it. But then on the food side, for example, remember that some of the inputs that they use are from farms. So the farms are hit by, like, you know that, I think it was in Jamaica producers, I know, for example, they got really hit by the Hurricane Beryl. They lost, like, I think 80 or 90% of their bananas or something like that. And Grace
That's
does
quite a
have some
bit.
farms for some of their stuff. So if hurricanes and stuff are happening more frequently, they're gonna have they could get hurt from the finance side and the food side. So sometimes diversification, the same thing could still hit you, maybe differently, but yeah, you can still be hit by the same event, which would be a storm. So there are more storms. Grace is gonna have to be careful. Insurance claims could go up, damage to their farms could go up, and then they could also have issues getting some of the raw material. Like, say they used to source something from, like, a farmer in Jamaica, their farm is messed up, they may have to then source it from somewhere else, and maybe that place doesn't get there in time, or maybe it's even more expensive, so maybe they get less margins on that. Then remittances is a big thing for them. So naturally, for example, because they are the biggest, well, up to the most recent thing, I think they're still the largest in the remittance space, right? If remittances go down, that means they're going to earn less money. And then if remittances go up, they could be earning more money from that Western Union side. What I saw was that comparing 2023 to 2022, remittances were actually down. Net remittances were down slightly. I think this was Bank of Jamaica, it was down 2%. And 2021 was apparently our best year yet in terms of remittance inflows. 2022 was like a little, I think this is this 3 billion or 3 points? Just probably look back to where it was. But essentially, remittances, well, it's not, I guess it's not down that much. 2022 versus 2023, down 2%. And then the most recent data I saw from the BOJ up to July 2024, we were down 1% compared to 2023. So I'd say it's still like a slight decline, but it's not somewhere stable. So I guess I'd like to see, like, how is that going to be trending? Because if remittances gradually keep going down, if Grace isn't careful and they don't try to expand that, they're going to be losing money on that Western Union side. And we'll go into, when we get into the financials, you can see how much of their revenues and profits do actually come from the Western Union, but it is like a pretty significant part.
Agreed.
And also, I should touch on the reinsurance. I know that a lot of the insurance companies have been saying, hey, their reinsurance costs are going up. So insurance companies they have to get, like, because our companies are a lot smaller usually, they essentially have like an insurer that insures them. So it's like, oh, they'll write a policy for you in Jamaica, but then someone is also from, say, the US or the UK is actually covering them just in case they say there's some hurricane or something, and then the insurance company here, it would be hard for them to pay out all that money to the Jamaican farmer or whatever Jamaican businessman.
Yeah.
They had some insurance from a company in the US or UK who can help to cover part of that so that they don't get hit as much. So if the reinsurance costs are going up, it could mean that, for example, Grace with its different insurance arms has to then raise prices, but sometimes maybe they don't want to raise prices too much, so maybe they even have to absorb part of that in some of their margins, so they may not make as much profit on some of their insurance products. Well, I mean, technically, if they raise the price and then people still, are raising the price, could even be a time that you could even get more money from it, because you could raise the price more and say, okay, my cost went up 10%. Do I raise it 10% or do I raise it maybe even more, 15%? Because I think down the line, maybe my cost is going to go up more. So I guess
But the
that'll be
people that would
interesting.
feel it is, I guess, us.
Yeah.
So it's a trade-off. I mean,
Yeah.
it would be profitable for the company, but it would hurt people's pockets in the long run. But It's
Yeah.
understandable based on how the industry
Mm-hmm.
has been changing, how climate
Mm-hmm.
change, all those other factors that you're saying has been
Mm-hmm.
just shifting in a
Mm-hmm.
negative light. So yeah.
Yeah. And also like to look into the competitors. So, they have, you can really split it up like who are the competitors on the food side. So you have like a AS Bryden, a Lasco manufacturing distribution, a CPJ, a Separate, a Wisynco. So those are pretty big competitors. And then on the
Mm-hmm.
finance side, you have like a Sagicor, a Scotia, a Guardian, a JMMB, a NCB, GNAC, a lot of these are like, listed companies.
Yeah.
So they do have a lot of competitors both on the food and the finance side. And I actually show a Excel thing here. So let's see. So I think I was doing like some stuff looking at comparing them to some of their manufacturing competitors and then some of their finance competitors. So you can see, for example, in terms of market cap, for example, I didn't actually notice that based on the price data that I have here, the market is actually valuing out of all these manufacturing companies, the market actually values Wisynco the highest essentially. Because the market values Wisynco basically just under 80 billion. But Grace is like I guess second. But then this is Grace, the finance plus foods though. They value it
Yeah.
at about like 73 billion. Like Separate is valued at like 63 billion and such. And in terms of
That's actually kind of crazy because GK's revenue, yeah, they're a $1 billion company,
yeah, so like
US.
but I think part of that is because it's like, or market tends, I think finance, if you meant it, most finance companies, and I'll show it soon, like the finance companies will trade at, you'd say, lower financial metrics or valuation metrics like price to earnings and PE, whatever. They tend to trade at lower. So I think it's a mixture because of Grace having the finance side and the food side. The finance side is
Mm.
almost maybe like bringing down, or if
Do
it
you think
versus if they
it's
were to split the business and it's just the foods, GK Foods would likely trade at a higher price if it was a separate business you could buy.
do you think
Yeah.
the nominal value has anything to do with it as well? Because
And I guess maybe that too. Yeah.
Grace trades
Like
at
we think it's like
at 70s.
20s.
Wisynco is at
Yeah.
20s. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that has I could see that can have an impact,
Mm-hmm.
depending, but I'm not entirely sure if that actually has an impact on this company. But
Mm-hmm.
we've seen in the past where
Mm-hmm.
there are certain psychological barriers when stocks get to a certain
Like
price.
$100.
Yeah, like 100 or even
Mm-hmm.
even less than that. But it's just psychological. It's not really rooted in much. But yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so like even look at the revenues, for example, Grace is doing, compared to Cinco, Grace is doing 100, and this is
it's like
based on their
60% more.
financial, the was it the 2023 financials, the audited, like the full year. They did about
Yeah.
155 billion in revenue. We Cinco did about like 54. And
Oh,
I showed you that I broke down the food side. The food side of Grace actually did about 122 billion in revenues. And GraceKennedy itself did about 8.3, we'll call it 8.4 billion in profit, actually higher than like a Cinco. Well, higher than all of the other. But I guess once again, if you look into the food side, I did some estimates on what the food side of Grace is doing. Great, the food side is doing about 4.8 billion, which is just under
mm-hmm.
Wisynco at like it's a 5.2 billion. And then if you look at things like the price to earnings ratio
You
over
should do
here,
another section for the financial side then.
yeah, I did. Yeah, man,
Oh,
just wait, no man, just wait.
okay, okay. No, I meant like right here, so too. So you can see the but I guess you have it in another pane because you put
Yeah.
it in finance.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you can even see like what I guess the market. I think we spoke about PE ratio before. I
Mm-hmm.
think we probably could even link. I think we did like I did a
A
clip.
mini video. Yeah.
Yeah, a clip. We can talk about the price to earnings ratio, but it's just one of the metrics that you value a company at. Essentially, you take the profits of the company and then you divide it with the profit is the earnings. You divide the profits by the number of shares in a company, and then you divide the price of the stock. So Grace is trading at $74 at the time of recording, and you divide it by the earnings per share. So you take the earnings divided by the shares, you get the earnings per share. You take the price, divide that by the earnings per share, you get price to earnings ratio. Essentially, the lower value is generally the better, but it's not so simple to say, oh, if I buy a low PE company, I go make more money. It's not that simple, yeah. Or it's not that simple. But yeah, what I was showing here was that if you compare it to something like
stonks go on the stonks go.
If you compare it to something like a Separad trading at 13 times, a AS Brad trading at 15 times, it's trading at a lower GK. The group with Finance Plus Foods is trading at a lower price to earnings ratio at about 8 or call it 9. Then I was looking in on the finance
almost as
side.
if they should buy back the shares because it's so undervalued. Wow.
We'll get into that. And I was looking in, I guess, comparing some of their competitors. I mentioned the banks, Scotia, NCB, Sagicor, JMB, Guardian. So if you look at it, market cap wise, they're actually trading somewhat on the low end compared to like the Scotia, the Sagicor, the NCB. NCB, Sagicor, Scotia trading like 130, 140, 150 billion. Grace is at like 73 billion. Profit wise, up to, and these are, remember, the audited numbers of 2023. So these aren't, I guess, very up to date, but SGJ is Scotia. Scotia is, I guess, the most profitable based on those earnings, because they did about 17 billion in profit. Yeah. And Grace did about 8 billion. And remember, this is Grace Foods and Finance, but when I broke it down, the finance side did about 4.3 billion. So you can see, comparing them to their financial partners, they aren't as big in the space. And I guess it makes sense because we've showed that, like, for example, the Canopy isn't huge in insurance space yet. FGB, very, very tiny bank comparative to like Scotia and NCB. And so it makes sense that, hey, they aren't as really big in the finance space yet. I mean, I guess they're trying to push in to grow that finance arm, but they're still a lot smaller than the others. And if even, you see, I was showing here that if you look at the price to earnings ratios of the other, like the finance companies, a lot of the finance companies will trade at like lower price to earnings ratios. Guardian trading at 4. I mean, I'd say Guardian is a good example of what you're talking about, Thaon, where there's a nominal value, kind of scares away people. They think it's expensive because Guardian is trading at about just under 300 Jamaican dollars. Is it the most expensive in terms of nominal value, like stock on the exchange? Probably.
Possibly.
Yeah.
I have to double check, but I think so.
So I think that's probably a big reason why trades at such a low multiple. So then, but yeah, and then you can even look in, NCB, JMB, they both did APOs and stuff like that. So you can see the price that they did the APO at. But what I wanted to get into now is some stuff in terms of the, I know what I want to get into. So the plans of the business, right? So big thing you want to look into, what is the company gonna like? You're looking with investing, you're trying to look ahead. So the company is what it is now, but what is the company gonna look like a few months down the line, a few years down the line? And then a big part of that is, what are the plans they have? Because if they have certain ambitious plans and they actually meet those plans, then that could make the company worth more than it is today. Yeah. So one of the big things Grace talks about is their 2030 vision, right? Their 2030 vision. So what is this vision? So Grace actually put out a notice to the stock exchange. I think it was in, I think it was 2021 or 2022. But essentially, I'll read it here. GraceKennedy's 2030 vision outlines ambitious growth and strategic goals to position itself as the number one Caribbean brand, not Jamaican brand, Caribbean brand globally. So across the whole world, they want to be that number one Caribbean brand, not Jamaican brand, Caribbean brand. So they want to beat out all other competitors from all other islands. And so they said the key targets to reach this 2030 vision One, they want 70%, or essentially the bulk of their revenues and profits, to be made outside of Jamaica. So yes, they're still going to be a Jamaican company, but they're saying, hey, we want to make a lot of our money outside of Jamaica, because say if they just stay in Jamaica, then if say something bad were to happen to Jamaica, that could mean that their revenues and profits drop. But if they are say diversified in a lot of different other countries and stuff, if all of those different countries, something bad would have to happen to them for them to maybe make less money. So they essentially want to be pretty, I guess, well diversified.
Mm-hmm.
They also said that they want to achieve revenues of 2.1 billion US dollars, 2.1 billion US, and they want to achieve a profit before tax of 250 million US dollars, right? Another big thing that they say, they want to list GraceKennedy Financial Group and GraceKennedy Foods and Caribbean and major overseas stock exchanges, respectively. So they want to list GK Finance on some Caribbean stock exchanges, and they want to list GK Foods on some major overseas stock exchanges, right? So that's their 2030 vision, right? And I actually asked them, they had a big up to them. I like their investor relations. They are one of those companies that will do things like they'll host their, I don't know if it's earnings calls, but I know that, like, for example, they'll do their shareholder meetings and they'll share it online, like they'll stream it online, and you can actually ask questions. And I was able to ask them some questions. I think the shareholder meeting was May 29th, 2024. And something I asked them was about them. It's like, where I think I asked them, I'll try to find a clip if I can. I think my question was like, hey, where are you guys in the process of getting this 2030 vision? Because if you think about it, we're recording now, it's 2024. It's basically the end of 2024, right?
Yeah.
So that means they have 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028, 2029, 2030, right? I'm
2030,
assuming
but yeah.
2030. So that's 6 years.
Yeah.
So do you wait to the fifth year, 2029, to then suddenly jump? Or do you have to start doing these things? Like, you have to start, like, you don't want to wait till 2029 when you're at $1 billion in revenue and then say, we need to double our revenues in 1 year. No, you have to start from now. So you have to set up some of those stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I asked them where they were in that process, and what they said essentially, and I'll try to put the clip.
What was the question?
The question was, what is the latest update on the listing of the GK Foods on an international stock exchange?
Okay, so we have engaged investment bankers. We have had discussions with Citibank, with Broadspan. There is some work to be done. The key pillar for that is that, in terms of size, Mr. Chairman, we'd have to look at an acquisition primarily in North America or the UK for it to be of size to make sense to that exchange. And we are, in terms of acquisition, we have a nice pipeline working on. I can't say too much about it, as you'd appreciate, but we are making steady progress. One of the main objectives of listing is to look at our balance sheet, and Andrew Masada has been working with PricewaterhouseCoopers to see how we can look at the balance sheet of GraceKennedy. And Andrew, maybe you want to comment on that, and PricewaterhouseCoopers is here, on the progress that we are making to reconstruct the balance sheet to ensure that it is worthy of international listing.
Thank you. So, yes, and what we need to make sure is that the structure of the balance sheet on the food side is appropriate, and attractive to an international investor. So we're looking at the options right now in terms of how the food companies are owned. It is through the parent company, and so we have to determine what's the best structure to bring that segment on its own in terms of its own financial position. So yes, we're working with PricewaterhouseCoopers. We have looked at some structure proposals, And right now we're at the point where we can look at what's the ideal selection to make and then look at planning that over the next period. As was mentioned, you also need to be at the right size for it to be attractive to an international market. So that is another element that we're looking at.
So Chair, I need to emphasize again that the listing of GraceKennedy on the International Stock Exchange is not something that is going to be immediate. It is a medium-term objective, and we are going to be continuing to have discussions with international investment bankers in terms of timing, size of the company to list. Our initial discussions with investment bankers in New York have been very positive. There seems to be a lot of interest in ethnic food companies listing on the International Stock Exchange. So we will continue to monitor the market to ensure that the timing will be right when we list. But the initial discussion has been very positive.
Thank you.
They were saying that, hey, to reach that target, we're going to have to acquire a company. Because what they were saying was that, the overseas stock exchanges, like, say, the US exchange, the NASDAQ, the New York Stock Exchange, those kind of companies, they raise like hundreds of millions of US dollars. They'll raise 400, 500 million US, a billion US, right? So for Grace to raise that amount of money, they kind of have to be a certain size. And they were saying essentially that we have to essentially work on acquisitions to then make us a larger company to then be able to do that. So that's a big part of it. So they're saying, hey, it's going to have to be an acquisition. And they said that acquisition is likely going to have to be in either the US or the UK for them to actually be able to be a size of a business to then be able to list on the stock exchange. So a big part, you mentioned before, acquisitions. Essentially, they're saying, we're going to have to do some really big acquisitions, like acquire. And remember, it ties in because they said they want 70% of the revenues and profits to come outside of Jamaica. So they're saying, hey, we're going to have to do some major acquisitions. And some of those acquisitions are going to be outside of Jamaica.
And
they said that they're in discussion.
Broilers, because broilers makes a lot of their money outside of Jamaica now, especially with their US operations, chickens, eggs, etc. Yeah, they have that footprint there. So I think that's also what Grace needs, because Grace, yes, some of its products are in overseas markets. Like you can go in certain supermarkets and find them, and even their subsidiaries like Spurtree. Like Spurtree is also international as well.
Yeah.
So
True.
it's just for them to actually find the right set of companies to acquire, because I don't think it's just necessarily one. Over the years, Grace has been acquiring a lot of companies, right? Both on the food side and the finance side. Right? We spoke about Scotia, Eastern Caribbean Insurance, and we've spoken about even Spurtree and listing a lot of those other companies and making them bigger and better, and boosting their exports as well. So, yeah, I see you're going to talk about their investment side.
Well, what they were saying was that they are in talks with some investment bankers. So I think they're working with Citibank and Broadspan, and they said they've engaged them, and they're saying that like a lot of their investment bankers are saying, hey, like you guys kind of, essentially my interpretation was they're saying, hey, you guys have a good company here. A lot of like investors in the US are really liking these, what they call ethnic food companies, essentially. They see like a lot of value. They're willing to price, these companies at a much higher, price and stuff like that. So I think they'd essentially eat up Grace's, because if you look at Grace, they're quite profitable,
What I mean, this is a bit separate, but when you said that, it kind of reminded me of Juicy Patties moving to, the US, like a franchise or taking that over in the US, and how people flock to Juicy to the point where their patties were sold on the first day. I think they were sold out in like the first couple hours or something like that, or the first hour. And I think, I'm almost sure, I feel like Cygnus is the one behind that, but I need to do a little bit more digging. But yeah, I'm pretty sure Cygnus is the one financing that kind of stuff. So and we've seen signals is profit. All I'm saying is, if GK can bust in another country, boy, I could see their profits skyrocketing, especially in the US, because all they really need is a proper foothold in certain areas. So yeah.
Because like one of the things I was even looking into, there was this company called BBB Foods, right? I think it's like a Mexican. Excuse me. It's a Mexican supermarket chain essentially, and apparently they're rapidly expanding. So they actually did an IPO early 2024, right? And let me show you this. I found this crazy. So this is an article I'm sharing here from Reuters. And so they say the shares, so they're listed. I think the ticker is TBBB. When the company listed, the shares jumped 11% when they listed on the New York Stock Exchange. They valued the business at 2.2 billion US. The shares listed at 17, or the IPO, you could have bought into their IPO at $17.50 US, right? So, and they raised 589 million US. So basically 600 million US, right? So think about that. So they listed, they raised 600 million US. I remember we're pointing to that. Grace says, hey, these companies, in the US market, you don't want just, a 10 million or whatever. Like if you're listing on these stock exchanges, they like a good size of the company, because I guess some of these funds, for it to make sense for them, it has to be a sizable company. So this was a company, I guess it's not really like because this is more, I don't think BBB Foods actually manufactures and stuff. It's more just like, if Grace were to say list its high-low division or whatever. But just stay with me for a second. So 600 million US, they raised at $17.50, right? Look at where the company is now. And tell me if this. So the stock right now is trading at 32 US. And I want to show you something there. Look at this. So this is Yahoo Finance. This is the trailing 12 months. So the last 12 months, their revenues and profits, they did, what is this? 50, let's call that 50 million US in revenue. You can see my screen here. Look at this line, net income or net profit. What is this?
Oh, they're not profitable.
They lost 335. Oh, wait, I just realized this is billion. Wow, this is 50 billion in revenue. This is in thousands. But they're not profitable. And when I look back, 2023, 2022, 2021, 2020, they have not been profitable.
At least it's not as costly. Their losses have been less every year.
Yeah, I guess. Well, not every year, because yeah, I guess. But yeah, I'm just like, wait. So that Wall Street is willing to buy the company at, I think we said they listed at about $17 or $18. They're now pricing the company at $32. So they're willing to even buy up the shares even more and have anticipation. And then, wait, this isn't, look at this part. There's something that Yahoo actually shows you what their analysts are like projecting the stock to be. Look at this. The analyst price targets, they're saying the lower end is 440 US and a high of 710 US, or average of 600 US. So the stock right now is at $32. Analysts, and it's not a profitable company, analysts are saying it's a $600 stock.
By when?
Well, I guess that's the thing. I don't know.
I guess it doesn't give a time, bro, and I'm 80.
But no, I'm just saying, like, hey, look at this, because Grace, what if Grace were to list on an exchange? They're a profitable company. It's not like, okay, this company, yeah, they're growing, I guess, revenues or whatever, but, and you said they're getting losses seem to be less, but they're still making heavy losses. True. I mean, it's gonna be a while. I don't know if, I mean, I'd have to do like more deep dive to understand, okay, what's going on. But I'm just like, hey, that's kind of, I think, why Grace wants to do this, because they're like, if we were to list this profitable company on the exchange, they would probably eat this up, because they're willing to eat up a business that isn't even making profit, doesn't have a strong profit record.
Yeah, their profits have basically doubled since listing, and they're listed this year, from what I'm seeing.
They're wait, what do you mean they're profits? They're not profitable.
Their stock price, has doubled.
Oh, yeah,
My
yeah,
apologies.
yeah.
Their stock price has almost doubled.
Something.
And
Yeah, something like that.
they listed this year, February of this year. So that's actually insane.
Yeah. So I was doing some numbers into what that could look like for Grace. Because okay, right now, Grace currently has issued about, let's call it 900 and just under 1 billion shares. They're authorized or allowed to issue 1.2 billion shares. So they've already issued 1 billion of the 1.2 billion they can issue. So they can issue about 200 million more shares, right? So if they were to issue these shares, and I was trying to like work out something to say, okay, what would, because my thing is that I don't think they want to list as maybe like a penny stock or so on the US, because I know that there's this thing in the US that when you have like a penny stock, it's not generally regarded as nicely or something like that. Like it's like, oh, yo, it's not a good company if it's a penny stock. But yeah, like, but say they're like, hey, we want to have a higher valuation. I mean, I guess they could like reverse stock split, but essentially what I was showing here is that if Grace were to say issue shares based on their current amount, they could technically just call a shareholder meeting and say, hey, we want to be able to authorize to issue 1.5 billion or 2 billion or whatever. But right now, Grace, if they were to issue shares at 100 Jamaican, which works out to about 63 cents US, that's about 132 mil US they could raise. If they issue the shares at say 150 Jamaican, which works out about 95 cents US, I call that $1, that's about 200 million US. They issue the shares at 200 US, and it's about 264 million. I guess I was trying to like do a comparison because remember I said there was that BBB Foods that was I think 600 million US. To see how much kind of money. So Grace could essentially be raising hundreds of millions of US dollars, And so what, as we said, what could they be doing that? What could they be doing that to do,
Yeah.
Yeah, and even something I was even looking into. So the 2030 vision. So let me breakdown what I have here. So I have Grace, up to where we're recording, Grace has released their 9 months earnings, which is up to September 2024. So it would be from January this year, 2024, to September 2024. They did about 126 million revenue, and they made about 6.6 billion in profit, right? If they continue at this track record, they'll be doing about 168 million 168 billion Jamaican in revenue, and about just under 9 billion in profit if they continue at this track record, right? So remember their 2030 vision. The thing is, the 2030 vision, you notice they give you US figures. They said they wanted a 2.1 billion in US revenues. So right now, essentially, if Grace continues on this track record for 2024, they could be doing essentially about $1 billion. They could match about $1 billion US in revenue. So essentially what they're saying is they want to double their revenues. I was trying to work out what would be if the exchange rate was maybe 200 at the time. But yeah, let's say, so essentially they want to go from 1 billion to 2.1 billion. So they want to essentially double their revenues by 2030. And then they said they gave it a profit before tax. Right now, profit before tax that they could be doing this year will be about 80, let's call it 80 billion Jamaican, 80 billion US. And then they said they wanted a 250 million US by 2030. So that's what? That's about...
That's 3 times.
3x? About 3x? Yeah, so they want to essentially triple their profits, right? I was trying to do some maths to see, okay, say they don't allow themselves to they don't increase their authorized share count, and they just issued the 208 million that we said they could issue. So if they issued that amount and then say they reach their 2030 target, right, they'd have about 1.2 billion shares outstanding. What would be the profits they could be doing?
They would issue that shares at 2030? At the time?
No, well, they'd be issued. So it could be before, they're likely before, maybe 2028, 2027, I don't know. But just what would it look like if they hit the profit target and they had that amount of shares issued? So essentially,
okay,
right now, I guess I was trying to get like to see what kind of profits and then relate that to the stock price. Right now we're recording $75 GK is trading at, right? So if they continue along this track record for 2024, they'd be trading at about 8 times earnings. But then if they were to hit their 2030 vision and they issued the amount of shares I said, they'd be trading at about 2 times earnings. Which you'd say is, yo, that's pretty, most companies on our exchange wouldn't trade anywhere like that. And then you have to also factor in like, yo, this is a company that just bought a bag of companies, possibly bought some big US or UK company, listed first Jamaican company, possibly to list. I don't know, are there any other companies listed on an overseas stock exchange in Jamaica?
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Possibly the first one to do that.
I think it would.
I feel like people would likely be willing to even price it at a much higher earnings level. So even like if the stock was at $150 and they did what they did, the stock is still trading like 5 times earnings if it was to do that. So it's like, even I guess you'd say, oh, like fundamentally profit wise and stuff, you could look at it and be like, even at a price of $500, if they hit that target, the price to earnings ratio is only about 16. Remember, Wall Street was willing to buy up BB Foods to whatever, and they aren't even making profit. My thing is, what would they be willing to? I'm even just wondering, like,
the
how
price
could
that they would list at.
Not just that, but like, how would they do it? Is it that? So I'm a GraceKennedy group shareholder now, right? Is it that GraceKennedy group would still be listed on the JSE, and then the foods and finance would both be listed? So I could either buy Grace Group, Grace Foods, Grace Finance, or is it just Grace Group is dissolved, and then I'm a shareholder, I get shares in foods and finance, and I can choose, I could sell my finance shares if I want and keep my food shares.
I mean, how would you dissolve it? Would you have to delist it? That's also another thing to think about, because if you're delisting it.
No, but the thing is, you'd be giving me value because you're delisting this, but you're giving me 2 listed companies for my shareholding. So it's like, okay, for every, I don't know how they do, every 10 shares in Grace you own, you get 5 shares in GK Finance, 5 shares in GK Foods. I don't know, like, yeah, there's a lot of ways I guess they could do it, and it's not like
we have do it in that ratio, of course.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like,
I get what you're saying. Yeah,
there's like an ownership percentage or so. I don't know, but yeah, that would. I'm even wondering, like, okay, I have. Is it that I could then say sell my shares? Because say if the shares are cross listed, so it's on the Jamaica Stock Exchange and then it's on the US market, is it that I could then have my shares in my account on a JSE and say it's trading at a higher price on the US market? I could then transfer from my account here to say, I could set up a US account and then transfer my shares to my US account in the US and then sell my shares on the US market, earn US dollars, and then just send that money back to Jamaica. Because then there could be like a whole arbitrage, I guess, where, on one market it trades at say $100, the other market is trading at $120. Yeah. So then I'll just, instead of selling at the $100 market, I'll sell the same shares at $120. Yeah, I may have to pay something fees by transferring it. But yeah. So I think there'll be a lot of opportunities. But like, one of the big things I'm like how I see this, whenever some of this stuff start happening, Grace is gonna start flying, right? And
no matter what.
But the question is, when would you buy? Because what if, for example, they just continue going along? I mean, they do their acquisitions, they do some, maybe they're small acquisitions, maybe 2025 they buy 2 companies, 2026 they buy another 2 companies, and it's like kind of like, every year they're growing a little. But like, what if,
what's
the
thing
big
that will
move
make
is like
buy?
2028?
Yeah. I think the thing that would make me buy is when I see them increase how much they're doing the buybacks by. Because if they're buying back their shares, imagine now next year they say, you know what, I'm actually gonna buy back 4 times what I was buying before. That to me is a sign that I'm like, all right,
but then
something's coming.
But it could still be 3 years from now, though. Like, what?
Could. All right, so then what other things are you also looking for? Because for me, that shows proper intention. Like, yeah, they're buying them back now because the PE is like 8, right? And it is, I mean, it was trading at $100 even a couple of years ago, and now it's, $75.
It's actually trading below book value,
Yeah, wow.
It's trading below. Let me see. think I've done up some numbers. So up to June 2024, the business had equity of about 83 billion Jamaican. So take the assets of the business, the liabilities, the debt. If you were to sell all the assets and then use that money to pay down all the debts, you'd have extra money left back, which is like that. You'd say, oh, you have extra money back. So that the excess, I guess, plus that, you'd say, oh, so they have equity of 82 billion and the market cap at the $75 is about 74 billion. So you'd say, oh, it's trading below. People say, oh, equity is at the true worth of the business. So I think what I would say I love about Grace is you mentioned like they're probably one of the well, first off, I think more companies on a JC should do more share buybacks, but I like
Agreed.
that they actually do the buyback. We should
And
mention
how they
that
structure it and report the buybacks themselves.
Yeah, like they actively buy the shares. Like, so we should mention that. So that was one of their plans that they had announced November 2023. They had said that they'd be willing to purchase 1% of the shares up to 1 year, which actually would end. It ends this month, November 2024. But they have been buying back the shares. I should show what's the latest notice. And for those, what I'd say, like, so the share buyback is like, say there's 1 million shares in the company. Oh, oops. This didn't search it. Yes, say there's 1 million shares in the company. And you can essentially, the company itself, if they have extra cash on their balance sheet that maybe they're not using to buy a company, not used to invest, they're like, hey, maybe we can invest in other companies, buy other stuff, pay our people that we owe, but we have extra money left back. Why don't we buy back our shares? And essentially they go on the market, the stock market, buy up the shares, and then the shares essentially can get cancelled. So you actually get less outstanding shares. And if you think about it, if what causes prices of stuff to move, anything, stocks, real estate, it's supply and demand. So if you're reducing the supply, which is the amount of shares that are out there, where you say the demand is the same or the demand is increasing, you can actually get a higher price. So I like that they have been buying the shares. So I'm looking here, their most recent, see they bought back. Let me pull this up to see. So you see GraceKennedy, so they put out a notice November 15th, 2024. They have purchased 1.1 million shares of Grace under their 2023 share purchase program. So they said that they were willing to buy up to...
This is just one day, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Nice. So they are willing to, when they had announced it initially, they said they would be willing to buy up to 1% of the shares, which was just about 10 million shares. And they've actually bought back somewhat close to that, about 6.4 million. I mean, if you even look at how much is that, 6.4 million at, say they were buying at like 75, that's about 500 million Jamaican. That's, I mean, comparing that to other buybacks, that's a pretty, I like that.
Yeah.
I think it's also a part of, like, if you just look at how, well, we should show this, like, Grace is...
So hold on. How much do they have left? And do you think they'll buy the rest at the end of the summer? I mean, the end of this month, sorry, because they've bought what, 6 point something million. They have up to 9.9.
So it really matters if
True.
they don't have to buy that amount. They say, hey, I mean, because it really just depends on how much. Yeah.
You just see a massive increase at the end of November. And then they'll be like, people will be like, Limitless, how did you guys know? It's like, well, just guess it.
But one of the things I'd like to highlight, and one of the things that I think is good to look at with a company, and I think Grace is a good example, does the management of the company actually own shares? So the CEO, the current CEO, is Don Wehby. Big him up. He has been with Grace for many, many years. Many, probably over like 20, almost 30 years or so. So you can see, I'm showing on the screen here, Don Wehby, the CEO.
Is he still the CEO?
Oh yeah. So there was a notice that they put out to the stock exchange maybe like a month ago, saying that Don Wehby had to step down because I think they said he was ill. I don't think they said what happened to... Oh yeah, so see here, October. They say So Grace, this is October 4th. They announced that the group CEO, Dan Wehby, temporary leave of absence to focus on his health. Starts October 9th. The group chief financial officer, Andrew Messada, will assume the day-to-day operations of the company. But Mr. Wehby will remain involved at a strategic level. So I guess it's been about over a month.
Yeah.
And they haven't really put out
a notice.
How old is he?
I'm actually not sure. But
Let me see.
whenever I see things like this, it never really looks good. 61.
Yeah, because if you look at it, if Google is right, this is saying he's 61.
Yeah, and then you have to step away for health reasons. And we haven't had
It's
an
not
update.
like the flu.
It's
probably not the flu. It wouldn't have been out.
A month
it's over a month.
Now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do wish him all the best. But he's been CEO from 2011. Wow. And I guess he would have been at the helm, or he is at the helm of this 2030 vision, that strategic positioning. I've actually been to one of Grace's. I don't know if it was some corporate outreach thing, and I heard him speak. It was a good event still. Never got to. I should have said hi and pitched Limitless and everything, but that was I don't know. I guess I was shy, but yeah, honestly, big up Sir Don Wehby. I mean, he's the reason you have your scholarship, right?
Yeah. That one of us, we. Oh boy. I wish for the best. I hope it's the best, yo. But yeah, I don't want to end on like a gloomy note. But one of the things I was saying is that I like to see when management owns shares, and if you look at it, up to September this year, Dan Wehby owned a significant amount of the company. He is actually the 10th largest shareholder in his company. He owns about 14.6 million shares, which valued at $1 billion Jamaican at the current price. So he is in the, and I think he's actually buying. I think he's bought. Yes, so see, in the March 2024 quarter, he increased his stake by 4%. He bought about 650,000 shares. And then look at that, Andrew Messado, the chief financial officer,
who is now acting
CEO. He also owns, I mean, not as much as Dan Wehby, but he owns a significant stake in the company. So I like to see this, like the board members, all of the board own shares. You know how much listed companies I look at? The board doesn't own shares, and I'm just like, yo, why not? And then, we mentioned Stephen Whittingham. He's also a significant shareholder, and he was buying he bought within the March quarter. Let me see how much up to September. Yeah, he owns, I'd say, a significant, not as much as Dan Wehby, but I like to see that, like, they're in the same boat as us. They actually look on the market and they're like, hey, this price is cheap. With our plans coming, like, I'm gonna buy some. So I like to see that. So not only is the company buying, but the management is buying too. So I like to see that.
The buyback as well. Them are run with the program. That is it.
Yeah.
So I like to, guys, if you guys want to be able to have like this feature and so on for My Money JA, just use code Limitless whenever you're signing up for My Money JA. They show you a ton of cool things with the JSE, ton of cool stuff. You get proper insights into the market, a lot of data, and the visualization of the data, top tier. So use code Limitless. It'll help the channel.
Yeah, but I think you're asking me about what I would look for to time this.
Yeah, to time, like, imagine you're an investor, obviously, but you're looking to buy GK, but you're trying to enter at the right time. Yeah, people say you can't time the market, but we don't really believe that. So if you want to enter at the right time, because you could be buying this and 6 years nothing will happen, but you want to be able to enter, and within the year that you enter, you're bingoing. You're riding the stock price going straight up. So what would you look for?
But the thing is, for something like this, it's not just gonna be there'll be points when No. They'll. What I'm saying is
Listing,
that.
I think listing on
Hold
a
on, hold
on a
on.
foreign market will
No.
definitely
That's not what I'm saying. What
let
I'm
the
saying
stock
is that
turn into a
it's
stock.
not like there's just going to be one. So there may be one movement that is greater than all the others.
Yes.
But there'll be other movements along the point. So then the question is, okay, because what you could do, you could say dollar cost average. You say, yo, every month I go put 10K in GK, 5 grand in GK, whatever your amount you can put, and just every month you just buy regardless of the price. By 2030, you would probably have, I guess you could do the math on that.
Yeah.
If
in fact, they're actually cool compound interest calculators that you can use.
So I guess you could do the math on that, like to see, okay, how much would it be worth? So you could just dollar cost average. That way, it don't really matter. I mean, by 2030, you'd likely have a significant stake. So you could say, hey, or a significant stake to you, and then you'd be like, hey, a bingo. When it reach whatever price, I mean, yeah, that's one strategy. The other strategy, I'd say, you could maybe buy the shares and then margin it, and then do stuff with the margin money. So you get a loan against the share value. I mean, people would lend just against the GraceKennedy shares.
GK. I agree.
That's one. And then you just say, with the rest of the money, maybe I'll make some more with it, and then eventually put that back in GK if you want. Or I guess other things I'd look at. Because the thing is that they've mentioned, like, I think at the same shareholder meeting that had asked the question, they said that they are working on certain acquisitions. I think they had said maybe one or two that they think would be really nice and stuff. So it's really just a question of, hey, I mean, when that's likely announced, if you look at something like, I remember when I think separate boss AS Bryden stock price flew like, I don't know, 20-30% or something like that. So if Grace were to buy some US company or something like that, bam, stock price flies 20-30%. So that's what I'm saying, like there'll be those steps. So it's like they're not just going to do one acquisition. So when they do that one acquisition, it moves 20-30%. So it's like, for you to then buy when the acquisition announced, you're probably going to be buying at a high price, and then you're not really going to make, say it flies 20-30%, you're probably not going to make as much, unless it's a position where it flies to 20-30% and it's like a drop back down after, when people kind of peter down or whatever, and then, or it flies and then it's like there's more to it. So it's like, if you were to do the math, you'd be like, wait, it's moved 20%, but I really think this is something that could move 60-50%. So maybe I didn't buy then. I guess there's other things like the shareholder meetings. If they did that, like say their next AGM next year, they'd say, oh, I want to increase the share count. But then increasing the share count could mean they could increase the share count and still 2 years. And it doesn't move. So it's still no, interesting. I don't know. I mean, I'd say I'd probably continue reading I try to read up on like some articles and stuff, because there maybe they give you a hint that say, hey, we're looking to do and maybe just have to be patient with it, because they might say, hey, we're looking into some 2 big acquisitions, and maybe it's a year, maybe it's 2 years from now. So maybe the best thing is either just dollar cost average it or margin, and then do something with the rest of the money, and you just have that and say, hey, I know this will fly. I don't know when, but it will fly at some point. So I'll just buy now and just, but it may be hard though, because like, then you're going to be like, yo, what if this is moving, but you're just like, no, GK is going to be like a $500 stock, $300 stock. I don't know.
Yeah, that's one of
and
the
then
things.
Another thing they could
difficult.
they could split, because if this is starting to fly at that price, they probably would like not just split the business, but they probably want to do a stock split.
Yeah.
Because it'd be like, imagine it flying, we just pointed out like Guardian is trading at like $300, and it's trading at a really low, you'd say, price to earnings ratio. And probably like a big reason of that is because of the nominally high stock price of $300. So I don't think Grace has actually done a stock split before. Yeah. So I don't think they're against doing a stock split again.
I feel like they would definitely split.
Yeah,
definitely split.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. It would be, yeah, like you know what? Because like the thing is like, if you try to, suppose you try to time it, and then you time it, you don't get much money in. Like, wouldn't you just be like, yo, I knew from 2021 that this was gonna be good, and I could have put money in this, like, you wouldn't feel that
You
way.
knew from the Limitless episode in 2024. Yeah. And you listen
you
to
know,
Thaon
I just
and
meant to,
Matthew
like,
talk
this will
about
be
this
look
stuff.
back. This will be
Yeah.
this will be nice to look back. You know, hi to me from the future 2030. I hope I decided to buy some Grace shares when the time was right. If not, damn you, you fool. This is why we're broke.
This is why we're broke, bro. Come on, get it
This is why we're
together.
broke.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy. You remember this rise, this December rise? Well, I don't think this is an accurate representation of the years, but I remember it wasn't this rise, sorry. It was actually 20, right? During COVID, why it rose. We spoke about the different areas. And one of them was remittances being high during COVID. And you were showing how profitable the financial arm is. Because imagine foods was 120 odd billion JMD in revenues, right? And then Grace did 150 billion. So let's say the financial aspect only contributed 30 billion. So this is the share, the percentage. So 78% of the revenues come from GK Foods, whereas 21% or 22% comes from GK the Financial Group. Yet they are so much more profitable, right? The financial side. So growing the financial side, much higher profit margins. Sorry, yeah, not more profitable, profit margins. Same thing. But yeah, it just makes sense for them to use the financial side to bolster their growth. Because yes, you can grow foods, and you can also grow exponentially with foods too, right? If you're entering new markets, and so on, like we've seen with Juicy as a company, right, as a restaurant, and BBB, you know. So I can see if they grow the food side and use the food side. Let's say they are using the food side to grow. They're eating fees because they're using First Global. Don't know if they can necessarily use First Global in other countries. However, that's another thing we have to meds to. They would have to get probably banking licenses abroad, and so could be what they're also waiting on. Right, that could be one of the things that they're looking towards. Who knows? But less likely, but still a possibility. But it would be just interesting to see how Grace goes about entering into these, continuing to grow in these new markets, not necessarily entering, because we spoke about them actually being in these markets. So it's just interesting to see how this will play out in the next 4 years, next 5 years.
Yeah.
Fun to watch.
I remember, you know, when there was something that I don't even remember this. There was a tweet from a certain investor. He said that GK Bank, which I guess is basically First Global Bank, is too small to really have an impact. Do they buy Scotia or NCB or JMB? And this was April 2022. And one of the things I was looking into, you mentioned that Scotia essentially was selling a lot of we spoke about, like, for example, they sold some of their insurance arms to Grace.
Yeah.
So I was like, yo, what if they were to sell their stake in Scotia Jamaica, or part of their stake in Scotia Jamaica, to Grace? Because say Grace is like, hey, we want to be, and I was thinking, you know, even the Reds, because you meant Scotia is red, GK is kind of like red and whatever. I was even trying to, I guess, look into some of the numbers for that. So this is the top 10 of Scotia. So there's Scotia Bank Caribbean Holdings, which is, I think Scotia is based in Canada, right? And then they have a stake in essentially they're the majority shareholder in Scotia Jamaica. So they own 71% of it. If Grace were, like, right now we're recording, it's trading at like $47. So if they were to buy that full stake and gain control of Scotia Bank, they would essentially, that costs about 100 billion Jamaican. I mean, we said that, the US market is willing to give hundreds of millions of dollars to non-profitable ethnic food. Well, there's still a supermarket chain, but they're willing to give, huge amounts of money to that. And if they're to buy it even at a premium to the market price, $60, they're to buy the whole stake. That's about 134 billion Jamaican.
Yeah.
I think when I was looking at the balance sheet, Grace, up to June 2024, they had like 25 billion cash, like 60 billion investments. I mean, I don't know. I was, I was even doing some numbers to say, okay, if they were to buy, so Grace, we remember I did a projected for Grace 2024 if they continue at the rate for the first 3 months. And then I found Scotia's 2024 financials at the projected, and I added them to say, okay, if Grace were to consolidate, they buy Scotia, the controlling shareholder in Scotia, that would take them to about 100 and, let's see. So in their 2030 vision, Grace, they're trying to earn a net profit essentially of about 190 million US. If they were to consolidate Scotia's earnings at the earnings I was working out, that'd be about 138 million. So that'd be somewhat closer to that'd be not too far from their 2030 vision. So it's not, I guess it's not fully, I don't know if it's really fully impossible. I guess it's really a question of does Scotia really want to leave? Because like Scotia, Jamaica is quite profitable, they're
Quite
the
profitable.
most,
Yet they've been
they
wrapping
were
up
super profitable. So
in
would they
other
really
countries.
want to sell it? I don't know.
We've seen them exit a lot of countries, and they've been closing a lot of branches.
The thing is, I don't know where those
profitable.
Yeah,
Also something to look into.
I don't know. But
I'm not sure.
Grace, I think it's really just, for me, it's more of a question of, it's not will it fly, it's just when will it fly, when will be the points where it flies, and when do I want to be a shareholder? Do I just want to buy now and just say, that's just a part of my portfolio I don't touch, and when it moves, maybe go up, maybe go down, whatever. Do I want to just dollar cost average it? I don't know. You'd have to see. You don't own shares now?
No, I don't own shares now.
Yeah, I don't own shares right now. But yeah, I mean, to me in the future, hopefully we made the right decision. Let's see.
One to watch. Guys, if you like this episode, drop a like. If you love this episode, hit that subscribe button and that bell, because we do these analysis all the time, right? And we drop weekly episodes. So guys, if you love the content, it would mean so much. So it's trying to reach 1,000 subs. Vamos. Limitless out.
Peace.